On today's episode of Locked On Wild, a fan favorite is... Wait, who's back?
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, Alex Micheletti joins us as we take a look at some breaking news today. Marcus Johansson re-upping for 1 year with Minnesota. We'll have plenty to say about that. Also, a little bit of new info regarding Marco Rossi from Bill Guerin's side of the aisle. We'll talk about that as well. And we're going to talk about where Bill Guerin stacks up amongst the rest of these Central Division general managers, which will be me learning a handful of general managers' names for the first time here in the Central Division. So looking forward to that as well. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild and Seth on Sports, which just debuted today on my home station in Mankato. You can find more out about that on X at Seth, Toups. But Alex joins us here today, and I had a very different idea of how this episode was going to go, Alex, when the day started. And lo and behold, at about 10:30 a.m. earlier today, the Minnesota Wild announced that Marcus Johansson is sticking around for 1 year, $800,000 contract to remain with the Minnesota Wild. He had 34 points in 72 games last year. I don't know how many times I said it during the season and leading up to today's events. I must have said it close to 200 times. There's no way Marcus Johansson is coming back. And yet,
surprise,
here we are. And there's one specific way in which this makes sense. There's only one way that this makes sense. I want to see if you and I are on the same page on this. I feel like the only way that this makes sense is if Marcus Johansson is brought in as a camp body to compete for a spot on the fourth line and ultimately maybe make it, maybe not. And if he doesn't, then he gets cut and he likely heads to Sweden, which was the other destination that was looking at him this offseason. Anything other than that, and I got to tell you, I'm kind of confused.
Same here. We can't have him be trapped in the top six. You just read off the amount of points he had this season. That is not enough for a top six player when you're in that role and the amount of ice time you can get. I can't have him be in the second line taking a spot from somebody, especially if they actually are going big game hunting in free agency. I just why have him in the top six again?
Yeah, and I got a good laugh at my desk at work today because the contract does include a full no move. No move. So you knew that was going to be coming back. But as much as I've tried to preach patience this offseason and let's wait and see how things play out before we react one way or the other. If this is anything more than like a bottom six roster competition that you are bringing in because he's familiar with the organization, he plays with some speed, and if some prospect is just not ready to go, that you've got a guy who knows the system and can give you like fourth line, maybe third. If it's that situation, okay, that's one thing. under $1 million. It's a very low cap hit. But that depends on what you think Bill Guerin is going to do in this situation. Because let's say you have a roster battle between Liam Öhgren and Marcus Johansson, and Liam Öhgren is winning. Is Bill Guerin going to say, hey, Marcus, Liam Öhgren had a heck of a training camp. We're going to give the spot to him. Sorry, best of luck to you. Do you think he's going to go that route if it really comes down to it?
It's so conflicting, right? I mean, we talked about it all year too, that he finds a way at the most desperate times to get another contract, right? Another deal. And it's sneaky, of course. And didn't we hear that he just had an amazing World Championships too? I'm sure that factored into him getting a contract back here, because like you mentioned, it was here or Sweden. Yeah, wild or bust for continuing the NHL career of Marcus Johansson.
You know what Marcus Johansson is? This is a really off the wall analogy, but I think people are going to appreciate it. This is like somebody in a Michael Bay movie who delivers like an impassioned, like passionate monologue. Like, just think like one of the Transformers movies. You got stuff blowing up all over the place, and the one piece of good dialogue is delivered by a character that is just not capable of carrying a movie. But some director is sitting in the theater watching and is like, that SOB's my guy. Like, he is going to lead this massive budget picture as the lead actor. And then you get into like an expanded role and you're like, oh no, this doesn't work at all. Like this just is not going to do it. Like this is kind of a thing with Bill Guerin though, right? Is it seems like he really doubles down on these hot stretches of play, and Johansson was better in the second half of the year. Like he takes a fair amount of guff from Minnesota media. I mean, some of it's warranted. I'm not going to try to take all of it away from him. He did play better in the second half. But just like with when he was brought back here in the trade, that 20-game stretch that he parlayed into a 2-year deal, remember that? Where it was like, oh boy, he's fantastic. He just looks great. And then what happened? I feel like I don't know. I don't know if it's that Billy truly believes that these players are capable of playing longer than just these spurts, or if I don't know. Like, I kind of made peace. I made peace with the decision to give that roster spot to somebody else. But again, like, I'm kind of irritated, but I also really can't get super worked up about it unless we get to training camp. And it's like, hey, Riley Heidt had a fantastic training camp, but we're going to go with Marcus Johansson because he's a veteran. If that happens, I'll burn the house down. But until that point, I have to see more of what the plan is this offseason. Below like a vet minimum deal doesn't move the needle for me.
No, and fans are going to get furious if they don't end up with a Brock Besser or Brock Nelson, because then they're like, uh-oh, then Billy's in panic mode. So then what kind of trade does he come up with? And that's where draft night is going to be chaos for sure, because if they can't figure it out in free agency, they have to in the draft type of trade, or there was talk that he's like, I don't even have to wait for the draft, so maybe he tries to get something done before July. We'll see, which would be more chaos. Maybe I'm just
maybe
they're never boring,
through-
right? They are never boring.
They are never boring. Maybe I'm giving too much of the benefit of the doubt, just trying to like kind of talk myself into it. But again, as a singular veteran minimum move, until like if he takes a spot from a prospect, I'm going to be upset. But
Right.
as it stands right now, if he comes in and is like the 13th forward, who did we have as the players that got called up last year? You had Ben Jones, you
Kevin
had
Shore.
Brendan Gaunce, you had Devin Shore. I think Marcus Johansson gives you a little more than those guys. So if it is truly like a, hey, we're going to have this guy one more year to fill spots if needed, fine, whatever. But if it's like, no, he's gonna be in the mix for a top 6 spot, then I'm gonna walk to XL Energy Center myself. So we'll see. Again, I repeat, the offseason has not even started. July 1st is the official start of the league year. And we have had, I think we've had something on almost a daily basis to break down here. Speaking of, Bill Guerin does not want to trade Marco Rossi. If you read his words in the latest article of The Athletic at face value. But does this remind you of a similar tactic used with a player a couple of years ago? Oh, we're going to get into all that. Tea, as the kids say. We'll dive into the tea on Marco Rossi as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wilds after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by FanDuel. We have our matchups for the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Final. And in the Stanley Cup Final case, it's a rematch of the Panthers and the Oilers. Every single game is going to deliver highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and during as well, with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I love this for basketball as well. If you want to take either a player to hit their second half point total to cover it, or a team to cover the second half under or over, you can live bet NBA games with FanDuel every game of the year. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We are rapidly closing in on 3,400 YouTube subscribers, 3,388, a steady stream coming in here over the last few weeks and months, even after the season was done. So thank you to everybody that has continued to subscribe, and we're going to keep bringing the action here all off season long. Alex, let's talk Marco Rossi, because pretty notable quote from the latest coverage regarding Marco Rossi. Bill Guerin saying, I'm not dying to trade Marco Rossi. He said that yesterday. I'm not dying to trade Marco Rossi. Guerin said, quote, I think sometimes you just have disagreements on where a player is at, and that's fine. And sometimes it takes a little while longer to work through things. But out there's this belief that we don't like him, we're going to trade him. And look, he's no different than any other player. If we can make our team better by trading someone, we're going to do it. But that doesn't mean we don't like the player. And Marco is a player that we like. He had a good season again, so I don't know where all this is coming from. Marco's a good player. I know where it's coming from. Interesting quote, though, because it feels similar to the Kevin Fiala situation, but it also feels different. And let's not forget the epic Cam Talbot situation at the draft a couple of seasons ago where Bill Guerin said, and I quote, "I don't have S to do. I don't have to do anything. Cam Talbot's going to be on this team. He's going to be a member of this organization, whether he likes it or not." And next day he was traded. Honestly, however you feel about Bill Guerin, that's probably one of my favorite moments of his tenure. Is
perfect.
You could feel the annoyance, like in just seeing the quotes typed out on paper. He also had one that I kind of parlayed into a pretty funny tweet. He said, "There's no room for petty BS on the team." And so you send petty BS out, you get Philip Gustafson, who looks like a franchise goalie, which is great. But it is interesting because the newest wrinkle to this is that, so obviously we know the Wild offered Rossi 5 years, $25 million, and that was turned down. The Rossi camp countered with I believe it was a 3-year, right around $7 million per year deal. What Michael Russo notes in his latest is that the Minnesota Wild offered a recent bridge offer that Rossi's camp has not responded to yet, and that both sides are expected to speak again this week. So if Rossi's camp countered with the 3x7, they want a 7x7. And frankly, Matt Coronado got a 7x6.5. So I don't think it's out of bounds for Rossi to be asking for 7x7, because that's just kind of where the rate is at. So what do we think we're dealing with here? 2-year deal, a 1-year deal. What do we think the Rossi camp is currently deliberating?
Yeah, I don't think they want a 1-year deal. I think they want some security. They want some, they want more than 1 year, especially coming off the point total that he had. They're going to compare it to the Coronado,
Yeah,
and they want they want Boldy money. So that's not going to happen here. I don't think they're going to get anywhere close to that to get Guerin to agree to anything close to Boldy's deal.
Could it potentially be a 4, like a meet in the middle? Like, we offered you a 5, you didn't want it. Mm-hmm. You offered a 3, we didn't want to do that. Let's meet in the middle. And now the only sticking point is just the dollar amount. Do we think it's that close, or are there still plenty of things to iron out?
I don't think they're anywhere close. Just based off the tea leaves and what the back and forth has been going on. I guess we'll see what the counter offer is. That's going to be interesting to hear if we hear actual dollars for the counter.
But it's interesting too, because we had these reports last week that the Philadelphia Flyers and the Minnesota Wild had some discussions, and we're looking at potential returns. Tyson Forrester and wasn't even it was an a late first-round pick for the Flyers, and the Flyers said no, which I think everybody reading into that was like, that doesn't smell right.
No.
If you just had to give up a late first-round pick for a Marco Rossi type player, and you say no to that, there's something more to there's something more that meets the eye. And then the report that the contract demands were too rich for the Flyers, which is why they didn't want to go down that road. Well, now it turns out most of that was all speculation, which is just, it's lovely. And maybe it's a good reminder for me that I should check my sources before I look at any reports and run with them. But again, we see a report today that there are like 6 or 7 different teams that are interested. And we talked about this on the live show yesterday. I feel like the best case, if you're moving Rossi, best case is that somebody offer sheets him for $7+ million. You get the first, the second, and the third, and you put those in with other pieces to go get somebody else.
Yeah, that's your best hope. You're just praying for that to happen and kind of restock the the prospect pool there, who's clearly struggling in Iowa right now. Maybe they just I don't know what to do with Iowa right now, but that they're gonna have to get some quality back because like Guerin said in that piece with Russo, he's not trying to make the team worse, so it has to be a good there has to be a good prospect coming back or some high draft pick.
I really wonder kind of what's going on in Bill Guerin's head right now, because you don't have the cap hits to hide behind anymore. Like
Right.
the expectations are real, and you've got to show tangible progress.
That seat is boiling.
You got to show tangible progress that this is going in the right direction, because I don't think it's the same as like tightrope walking between the two of the tallest buildings in the world. Like, it's not that steep of a slope, but you do have to remember that you're starting your negotiation window with Kirill Kaprizov, and he's not dumb. Like, he knows the direction that this team is going in. And if he gets the sense that things are not going in the right direction, then Bill Guerin will probably be packing Kirill's suitcase as he's packing his desk. So this is why I think it's so important to just, like, for me, like, I'm not telling people how to react to what happens. Like, if you are not happy with the Marcus Johansson signing, go off.
Right.
But me covering this team, I am trying to withhold until we get a bigger picture put together. If we get through the entirety of the offseason and Marco Rossi got traded for a bag of peanuts, and Marcus Johansson is in line to play meaningful top 6 minutes, then Guerin's got to go. But we are not at that point yet. We are not at that point. Moves still have to be made. And so I am going to just react to the entire picture when the entire picture reveals itself. So I don't know. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking today and not really saying anything.
No, it's such a weird time for this franchise too, because now the buyouts are gone, and what's going to happen? Are they actually going to take that next step forward, or are they going to be just stuck again, even without the buyouts? Because like I mentioned earlier in the episode, if they strike out on some of the top free agents, fans are really going to start to freak out, and then they're going to have to hit in the trade market, and that's a lot more difficult than free agency. So, yeah.
Well, I know one thing that would get the Wild to the Western Conference Finals: Pete DeBoer, who we'll talk about a little bit to finish off the episode, because I'm gonna hard pivot here, because Stanley Cup Final is this week. Like, it starts on Thursday, so we should probably talk about the two teams that are in the final and this DeBoer drama, and we'll pull it all full circle with the Minnesota Wild too. But Stanley Cup, it's not till Thursday though. Like, could we have started it tomorrow?
Wednesday night.
It is Wednesday night.
Wednesday, basketball's Thursday. So yeah, another long break for both of the
We are just about into the only baseball abyss. It's okay. We'll get through it. We'll finish today's episode with a Stanley Cup Final preview right after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. And once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to hit that like button. make sure to hit that subscribe button, and also make sure to leave feedback in your favorite audio platforms as well. Whether you like, whether you comment, whatever you do, it all helps the reach of the show. So make sure to light it up for today's episode. Comment today. Are you in favor of the Marcus Johansson contract? Yes or no? Light it up. As if you even like it a little bit, let us know. If you absolutely hate it, let us know. Blow up the comment section. Alex, let's talk about the Stanley Cup Final. The Panthers and the Oilers. The rematch. If they meet next year, I can call it the 3-match, which is just too good. But it's interesting to look at these two teams and how they're built, and how, in particular, like let's go to Florida with Bill Zito. How radical of changes they made while still being a playoff team in order to get to the next level. Like, let's not forget, they had Jonathan Huberdeau, 115 points for the Florida Panthers, and that team, which was helmed by Joel Quenneville until he was disbarred from the league and Andrew Brunette took over, and they went 1 for 31 at one point in the postseason on the power play. After that, some pretty radical changes. Matthew Tkachuk comes in place of Jonathan Huberdeau. You bring in Sam Reinhart. You had Alexander Barkov, but all of a sudden now Barkov's got some help. And you just, all these savvy signings and veteran acquisitions.
Getting Carter Verhaeghe, who was a fourth liner in Tampa Bay, and just they knew that there was more there, and he's turned into a heck of a player with Florida too, especially in the postseason.
But this is, I think, the thing that separates a GM like Bill Zito from a GM like Bill Guerin. And now that we don't have restraints to deal with, maybe we see a little more of this out of Bill Guerin. But Bill Zito had a perfectly good Florida Panthers team. But sometimes you got to make some radical changes to get the team over the hump. And now you got a Florida Panthers team that is going into the Cup Final for the 3rd straight year, trying to win their 2nd straight Stanley Cup. I will also say that Paul Maurice has more than a little bit to do with this. He has a large part to play with this team. But because of a key injury for the Oilers, I got to feel like the Panthers are the favorite in this series, and it wouldn't surprise me if it goes 7, but I kind of feel like the Panthers get it done before that.
Yeah, I see a lot of people on the Oil, but I mean, that Hyman injury is just gigantic. And, even if the Oil, they do have the home ice right now, I mean, it's tough to take down the defending champs. They've beaten this Edmonton team before, and they know how to beat them. And I still trust Bobrovsky over Skinner. I know Skinner's had a roller coaster of a postseason again, where he's had shutouts, but then he's given up a ton of goals too. So yeah, I like this Florida team. Getting Brad Marchand was huge. And how about Seth Jones? He was what a turnaround. Maybe it was just in part being on that Chicago team, but that pickup was just as good as Brad Marchand. And Florida's third lines was their best line in the last round. Lundell was fantastic. He was in that same draft class as Rossi. It's too bad Lundell was not drafted by the Wild, but I trust Paul Maurice and to get it done with this Florida club again.
Stuart Skinner in his career is 25-19 in the playoffs, and let's not forget the reason that he got thrust back in this year is because Calvin Pickard got hurt.
Yes.
That's why. And then Skinner just he flipped the switch, but he has in his last 20 playoff wins, he's given up 30 goals. Think about that for a second. In his last 20 playoff wins, he's given up a total of 30 goals. Now, in the losses, he has given up considerably more than that. And in the 4 games that he has lost in this year's postseason, he has given up, I think the number is 25 goals. Like, he is either in or out. There's no in between. So he's going to have to be in the whole series. This Panthers team can hit you with just a ton of torrential pressure. It's like a monsoon, fitting that it's a Florida team. So he's going to have to be on his game, but, it's going to be interesting to see how the Panthers contend with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, who are not they're not limping into the infirmary this year like they were in last year's Cup Final. They're going to be able to actually give you something this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how Florida tries to neutralize that. But you've got guys on that Oilers lineup, Evander Kane, Corey Perry. Those guys can play a role. That's how you draw the lines even in this series, is by having those guys go nuts to contend with the center depth and the overall lineup depth that the Panthers boast.
Yeah, 100%. I can't wait to see it all play out. Right? It's going to be interesting for sure.
I just want to finish with this Pete DeBoer stuff, Alex. Dallas being a Central Division team, I feel like it's relevant to keep an eye on, because there was a report today from David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period NHL Network, amongst other spots. Noise out of Dallas regarding Pete DeBoer. Per multiple sources, players are not pleased with how he handled several situations during the Western Conference Final, along with post-Game 5 and exit media remarks. Told players voiced concerns during internal exit interviews. DeBoer has 1 year left on his contract. Gee, I can't imagine what they're talking about there. And then you get this weird report today that Jason Robertson might be on the trade block. Trouble in Big D? Question mark?
Yeah, there's a lot of drama going on right now, right? With DeBoer just calling out Ottinger for no reason, and then you got all sorts of the rumors you said with Robertson, and Jamie Benn thinks he's coming back automatically to Dallas, but we'll see what Jim Nill has to say about that. Yeah, there's going to be it's going to be a long off season to just try to get people in better moods there in Dallas with the players and coaching staff, and we'll see if DeBoer makes it through this off season or not.
Dicey. I would not want to have to be dealing with all that, which seemed to start the moment that Mikko Rantanen came to town. Not saying that's a thing, but it's probably a thing. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day of the week. On tomorrow's episode, I'm going to do a little bit deeper of a dive into Bill Zito changing the fortunes of the Florida Panthers and what can be gleaned from that by Bill Guerin. And since it is June, we're going to start draft profiles leading to the NHL draft at the end of the month. Even though the Wild don't have a first-round pick, they will still be making selections. So we'll take a look at some possible names they could keep in mind, as well as free agency profiles, trade proposals, all that coming up here the rest of the month. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day.